you got all these letters from BATF saying, well, we've changed our mind. Just because we told you could do something 9 months ago, we've decided to change our mind. I assume you did not ask for the reconsideration, and I assume that the Firearms Tech Branch does not normally do this, or is this something new?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The reconsideration letter. Yeah, one of the three. Where upon reconsideration, they decided to revoke a previous classification. And no, this isn't something that you normally get. I've never received one before. We had an item. Actually an accessory that my company had designed over a year ago. We had submitted it because we wanted to be lawful to Tech Branch to verify that this was compliant and not under the purview of the National Firearms Act or the Gun Control Act of 1968. They sent the item back to me and told me that it was not a firearm. It was not a machine gun. It did not contain the frame of a firearm, nor did it contain the frame of a machine gun. It was nothing. It was parts. It was an accessory. And my company started to go into production on these, and had sold a few units. 9 months later, after being threatened by Mr. Nixon for showing up at the Wren case, I get this letter stating that upon reconsideration, they didn't say why they would go back and reconsider something. The motivation for the reconsideration, I think, is really fascinating. They claim to always be under-budgeted and behind on everything, and yet they had so much time on their hands they could just go perusing the files and say, you know what, I'm going to reconsider this one. Or was there something a little bit more nefarious involved, like maybe a little retribution? Maybe they wanted to send a clear message to the industry of don't ever show up in a federal courthouse and tell us that we've made a mistake in our testing. And I think they wanted to send that message loud and clear to the industry, and have. So they've gone back on their word, and even though we've got it in writing stating that it is nothing, it's not a firearm, they now say, nope, this is a machine gun. These are all going to have to be registered. These are all illegal. And it was done just to create financial harm and to teach me a lesson for speaking out against them.
This is Talking to America. Our guest today is Len Savage, and we're talking about the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, or otherwise known as the Bureau of Arbitrary Technical Findings and Edicts. And today we're definitely talking about some edicts from the government criminals at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. If you could give us a little more information or insight into the terms that they were using, characteristics and features of the weapons, actually the non-weapon that they're talking about, and also what you think that portends for all the guns in America when the BATF is talking about characteristics and features.
Yes, sir. That's very important because they got caught fudging tests, so they no longer test any submissions at Firearms Technology Branch. Now they're evaluating them on their design characteristics and features. And the features and the characteristics that they're pointing out and saying, this is what makes this a machine gun. Well, we have a big problem because almost every firearm has the same characteristics and features that they're calling out. It's very scary because they're setting a precedent here that down the road, your Ruger 1022 is going to be discovered to have the design characteristics and features. You know, it can take a high-capacity mag. It can be made to do this. You can put this stock on it. You can make it look, this is all about appearances. Haven't we heard this before? Didn't this expire? It sounds to me like the ATF has taken it upon themselves through reinterpretation of existing regulations to basically litigate. I mean, they're making law through reinterpretation. They're short-circuiting Congress and the President, and decided, that Clinton gun ban we had, the assault weapons ban, we want to bring it back, but we don't want to be troubled with that bothersome thing in Congress and votes and President's signature. Let's just reinterpret what we got and go right back to where we were anyway. And that seems to be the case. When you start talking about features and characteristics, you're not talking science, you're talking appearances. And it's a very slippery slope, as we know.
Yeah, the previous ban really was based simply on cosmetics, as most people know, or else they should know. Well, giving all this flip-flopping by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. How's a jury going to figure it out when this finally goes to trial and all these people who have been erroneously put in jail because of the actions of the government criminals? How's a jury going to figure all this out?
First of all, that's a great question. Now, what the jury's going to see is a man in a three-piece suit who says he's been working for the government for decades come out and give a bunch of technical-sounding stuff. It's so many millimeters long, so many millimeters wide, shoots a 7.62 by whatever millimeter cartridge. But there's no way for them to know whether this man is a real expert, whether this man is a high school dropout. They're not going to know any different. Here's a question for you. If in 9 months the ATF can't figure out whether something is or isn't even a firearm or is or isn't even a machine gun, in 9 months, if they can't figure it out, how in the world is the jury going to figure it out? If the regulations are so vague that the government's own experts cannot discern them, then aren't they unconstitutionally vague and overly broad? If their own experts can't figure it out, there's no way a jury with a finite amount of time to figure it out is going to be able to. I see a toenail hold for striking down of the Gun Control Act of 1968 and the National Firearms Act of 1934 through the ATF's handling of the regulations. Regulations are interpretations of the law. And this is very strange because the ATF can say, okay, we're going to create this regulation for this law that Congress wrote and the President signed. And they seem to think that they can go back and reinterpret these and just short-circuit Congress, and they can't. You're not allowed to do that, and there's a constitutional mechanism to prevent that, and that's if it's unconstitutionally vague or overly broad. Well, they've now documented the fact that the experts of the United States of America, the government, on one day says that, no, this is unequivocally our answer for this item, and then 9-10 months later says, no, we're taking the opposing point of view now, and citing the same reasons in both letters. So they have just proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that even they cannot discern the regulations.
You mentioned Congress, and I guess the question is, this is really based on your own gut feeling. Do you think the gun owners have any friends in Congress? Because, some effort has been made to bring all this information to certain individuals in the U.S. Congress, the Jim Sensenbrenner crowd, and actually some Congress people who are quite decent, and yet nothing is happening. Nothing is getting done as of yet. So do we really have any friends in Congress?